Welcome to this episode of our program Arab Affairs. Today we'll be speaking about an Arab file, and definitely the Israeli escalation and raids in Jenin is the most very much focused on topic of the past few days and the past few months since the Israeli new cabinet assumed office. Egypt has released a statement categorically refusing the recurrent Israeli raids against the Palestinian cities in the occupied territories. It's totally denounced the escalation in violence. Before, in April, Egypt has already proposed 3 concrete measures to achieve calm and end the cycle of violence through its ambassador in the permanent representative of Egypt to the United Nations. And in February, Egypt attended an important meeting in Jordan in which some of the agreements and consensus were made. That meeting has included several high-ranking officials from security officials from all the sides, and every party reaffirmed the need to de-escalate the situation and prevent further violence, upholding the historic status quo of the holy sites in Jerusalem, that the Palestinian and Israeli sides would end the unilateral measures that would lead to escalation. The Israeli also was committed to stop discussion of any new settlement units for the coming months, and to stop the any new outposts for the 6 upcoming months. And the in March, the Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, the Palestinian Authority, and the Israeli government reaffirmed commitment to work on ending unilateral measures for a period of 3 to 6 months in a joint statement that was shared by the Egyptian Foreign Ministry. This raid in Jenin and the escalation in the Palestinian occupied territories is one of the biggest in years for the Israeli violence in the Palestinian occupied territories. The timing, reasons, that's what we will be speaking about in our episode today. Before we delve into our discussion, let me first have the a quick look on the Arab news that took place during this week, and we'll come back for more discussion.
Al-Azhar strongly denounced the repeated attacks of the Israeli occupation troops on Jenin city in the occupied West Bank, which left martyred and injured innocent Palestinian citizens. Al-Azhar asserted that such aggression reflects the Israeli side's insistence on continuing the attacks, incursions, and committing massacres against the Palestinian people. Al-Azhar called for a unified Arab and Islamic stance towards such violations in Jenin, and also called the international community to bear its responsibilities towards what is occurring in the Palestinian occupied territories. The United Arab Emirates pledged on Thursday to give $15 million to help rebuild the Jenin refugee camp after the most intense Israeli occupation military aggression in the West Bank in nearly 2 decades. The UAE said the money would be granted to UNRWA that assists Palestinian refugees to rebuild damaged homes and businesses, and for the agency's services. The funding promise comes after the 2-day offensive destroyed the camp's narrow roads and alleyways. Omani Foreign Minister Badr bin Hamid Al Busaidi started on Friday an official visit to the state of Palestine. Palestinian Foreign Minister Riyad Al Maliki welcomed the visiting Omani minister at the presidency headquarters Upon his arrival, al-Busaidi is scheduled to meet Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas and will convey to him a message from the Sultan of Oman, Haytham bin Tariq. The message tackles means of boosting bilateral ties and retreats the Omani constant stance in supporting the Palestinian people and their just cause. The Israeli military said in a statement that it had stricken southern Lebanon, claiming that Lebanon launched a rocket attack earlier in the day. Lebanon's official national news agency said Israel had subsequently fired more than 15 artillery shells, which hit around the communities of Kafr Shuba and Halta. UN said its commander was working with the Israeli and Lebanese authorities to prevent further escalation, calling on everyone to exercise restraint. Syria said it repelled a missile salvo from Israel, where police reported that the remnants of the Syrian anti-craft missile struck a remote town without causing injuries. Israel has in recent months intensified strikes on Syria airports and air bases to disrupt Iran's increasing use of aerial supply lines to deliver arms to allies in Syria and Lebanon, including Lebanon's Hezbollah. Syrian state media said air defenses intercepted Israeli missiles across central parts of the country, downing most of them. An Israeli military spokesperson said warplanes struck targets, including a Syrian air defense battery, from which an anti-aircraft missile was launched towards Israel. Iran and Sudan said they were planning to restore ties after the Iranian Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdel-Hayyan met with his acting Sudanese counterpart Ali Sadiq on the sidelines of the non-aligned movement meeting in Azerbaijan's capital Baku. Sudan's foreign ministry said in a statement that the meeting had discussed restoring relations as soon as possible. Minister Sadiq thanked Iran for supplying humanitarian aid through the Iranian Crescent during the conflict between Sudan's army and the paramilitary rapid support forces. For his part, the Iranian top diplomat said they had discussed how to imminently resume diplomatic ties, resolve misunderstandings, and strengthen bilateral political and economic relations.
Right, welcome back. And to highlight the situation in the Palestinian occupied territories, we have with us over the phone Mr. Ramzi Khouri, Palestinian journalist. Good afternoon to you.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you so much. So, the situation in the Palestinian territories so far?
Well, it's obviously on edge. After the Israeli operation in Jenin, the Palestinians replied with several operations in order to send a message that nothing comes at no cost. Unfortunately, this violence brings violence, and it could explode at any time now.
I'm sorry. What does this mean? Nothing comes at no cost. What does this mean?
The Israelis are used to going and killing Palestinians, right and left. They are used to going and building settlements on Palestinian land. They are used to going and displacing Palestinians, like what they did in Jenin right now. And the Palestinians feel that they need to always answer back in order for the Israeli people who have elected this government to understand that the action of their government would come at a price.
If I may ask you here, Mr. Ramzi, this is, I guess, the biggest strike on in one of the biggest operations or largest operations in 20 years on the West Bank and on the Palestinian territories at large. Why? I mean here, what are the reasons? Why now, from your point of view?
I'll tell you why now. Netanyahu just asked his opposition which is Gantz, in the polls for the first time. His ratings were going down dramatically. By doing this operation, what he has done is he gained popularity. And this is the problem that we are facing. The problem that we are facing inside of Israel is that the public has been shifting to the right, and the public is expecting the Israeli government to always attack Palestinians and carry out its operations. And therefore, every time Netanyahu feels that he needs to gain popularity, all he has to do is to go and kill Palestinians. The difference with this is that, in terms of scale, is that Israel this time bombarded Jenin from the air and invaded on the ground with massive troops. And Israel declared that they killed 12 terrorists. Obviously, they are not terrorists. However, they also declared that they destroyed terrorism infrastructure. And the terrorism infrastructure they're talking about are the roads of Jenin, the hospitals of Jenin, the schools of Jenin, the mosques of Jenin. This is the terrorism infrastructure that Israel is talking about.
The issue is that this time the incursion of the Israeli forces was preceded by the strike by Jewish settlers and the burning of some villages. Would you describe how that went on and how this systematic strikes went on?
What they do, the settlers attack Palestinian villages, cities, farms, under the protection of the Israeli military. So the Israeli military comes in, they make sure that the Palestinians don't come near the settlers while the settlers are rampaging the cities or the villages or the farms that are close to their settlements. And the idea behind this is first of all to gain popularity with the settlers as a government, but also to send a message to the Palestinians that there is no place for you here. You are not safe in your own home. If you did buy a new car last month, the settlers are going to burn it and destroy it for you, and therefore you shouldn't even bother. And this has been going on almost on a daily basis at different scales. So let us, on a daily basis, there are 10 settlers who go and destroy olive trees. Also, what we have been seeing lately is hordes of settlers in the hundreds attacking villages and farms and cities under the full protection of the Israeli military.
Under the international law, or according to the international law, the occupied territories and people who live in occupied territories are supposed to be protected even by the occupation forces. How do you view that legally, and how could the Palestinian Authority and the Palestinian president put this into consideration while raising this into international courts?
Well, this is the big dilemma that the Palestinians are facing that other nations did not have to face. Israel breaks the international law on so many counts, even invading a highly populated area and killing so many people, destroying civilian infrastructure, etc., is not allowed in international law. Settlement is not allowed in the international law. And Israel has been doing that over and over and over again. And international law does not apply on Israel. So Israel is above international law, and no other nation on earth is. Maybe the USA is to a certain degree, but no other nation is above international law like Israel is. I'll give you a great example. Antonio Guterres is described by Israel as the friendliest in the history of the United Nations. So the Secretary General of the United Nations, who has been equating any attack on Israel or any verbal attack I'm talking about as anti-Semitism, was forced now to come out and make a statement telling Israel that using excessive force in highly populated areas is against international law. This is the maximum that is going to happen when it comes to Israel, and Israel knows it. The United Nations just held a closed meeting asked for by the United Arab Emirates, France, and China after the Jenin massacre. And it was a closed meeting that basically resulted in telling Israel that they should no longer continue to use such force against the Palestinians in highly populated areas. And Israel knows it's not going to pay a price. If any other nation was doing what Israel is doing now, if any other nation is a state of apartheid like Israel is today, then there would be sanctions, there would be major action that would force Israel to pay a very big price for what it is doing.
Mr. Ramzi, I'm not pretty sure with the response of the United Nations, because Mr. Guterres, the UN Secretary General, has affirmed or has literally said that all Israeli military operations must be conducted with full respect for international humanitarian law. So I'm not pretty sure what exactly does that mean. I mean, what's full respect in military operations? Anyway, what I want to ask you here is how the international community is looking to the Palestinian conflict in terms of we are seeing the Russian-Ukrainian war, and we are seeing how the international community at large is responding to the Ukrainian war, even though that the just or the conflict here is not as clear as the Palestinian cause. And they are giving just a blind eye to the situation in the Palestinian occupied territories. How do you view the international community's response towards the Palestinian cause so far?
The double standards of the international community when it comes to Palestine and any other conflict on earth, it's painful. It is terrible. It breaks down the whole concept of international law. It breaks down the whole concept of justice. Every single time the international community wants to criticize Israel, they start by saying, we understand the need of Israel to protect itself. To protect itself from who? And how do you protect yourself by attacking civilians and destroying civilian homes and civilian infrastructure? And they do that as if they are in full fear of what Israel is going to do to their government in their next elections. It's fascinating. Even Guterres, he should not be just standing there making a statement saying that doing this and that is breaking international law and Israel should be more careful in the future. Guterres should be working on a binding resolution that places sanctions on Israel. Israel has to understand that it is not above international law. But nobody is working on this, and nobody is doing that. And obviously, Israel has protection in the UN Security Council. Any action against Israel that is halfway serious is vetoed by the United States of America. As a standard procedure, of course.
And that also is another not very much understood response from the United States, that has not really expressed concerns this time in this biggest, literally biggest operation in 20 years in the occupied territories. If I may ask you about the timing of such a strike is very awkward. And it was preceded by a strike on Syria. How do you view that? How do you view the timing? Particularly that there were reports of some of the Israeli demands that were not accepted neither by the Palestinian Authority nor by the Arab countries.
I'll separate the two incidents. Israel will attack in Syria every time they see a target. And this is going on all the time, and the minute that they are able to detect the targets that they want in Syria, they will immediately attack. With the Palestinian issue and the invasion of Jenin, this is something that has been planned since Netanyahu took power. This is not something that is arbitrary and instantaneous. And the reason why they conducted it now is because they know that the American administration is on vacation during the 4th of July. And why did they want to do it during this period? Because the American people are extremely busy during the 4th of July. Hardly many in the USA are watching news.
But we are on the 8th.
And they want to save the American administration the embarrassment of having to come out and say, well, this is excessive force.
We are on the 8th of July, Mr. Ramzi, and even the Israeli strikes were even before the 4th of July. So the American